North Yorkshire Rotters, and we're a volunteering project based in North Yorkshire, and we're funded through the York and North Yorkshire Waste Partnership and North Yorkshire County Council, and what they do is help us raise awareness in the community of how important it is to compost at home and reduce biodegradable waste from going to landfill, and in doing that we use resources such as the compost bin here, which
This is it's an amazing display
cut
here.
out, which really gets kids involved.
Tell us about what we're looking at here.
Yeah, so it's just a normal Dalek compost bin which we cut out and put a Pyrex case in and then fill it with everything that you can compost, and it really grabs people's attention and shows them really the variety of things that we can compost, and that's really what the volunteers go into the community and do, raise awareness of the volunteering scheme as well, but mainly of how much we can compost and how we can reduce waste as a community.
Let's just backtrack for a minute. Why is it important to compost and reduce waste? What's the issue? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so all the biodegradable waste that goes to landfill creates methane, and methane is 21 times more potent than carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, so it's a greenhouse gas. So it's a big environmental problem, and the more we can reduce and compost at home, the less methane we actually produce in the county. So in a compost bin all we produce is carbon dioxide on low levels.
Right.
So it's really, really important that we get more people to use their waste in their own home to produce an effective product such as compost.
Yeah, and I guess, it's not only that, but I guess it's the byproduct is something that's great for the garden as well.
Absolutely, yeah, you can sort of use it on all of your plants, trees, feed your lawn, use it in any way you would use normal compost, and it's really nutritious and it's really strong and it's much better than some of the things you buy.
Would you say that the majority of people aren't composting though? Is that the kind of issue?
I don't think the majority. I think that's quite hard to say. I think a lot of, especially in North Yorkshire, it's quite rural. We have a lot of compost heaps in gardens and things. And some of the schemes we run is we actually try and subsidise compost bins, or we have one-day sales to get more people with a compost bin in their own garden.
Right, so you've got a fantastic display over there, plus we've got some of your volunteers, so let's go and have a chat.
Yeah, so this is a compost doctor surgery today,
okay.
where we're trying to really solve anybody's problems with composting, if they haven't worked in the past, if it's too slow, that sort of thing. We answer all their questions with our experts in the field. So we've got Pauline, Ian and Judy, who are all North Yorkshire Rotters.
Rotters, okay. Well, how do you mind being called a rotter?
No, I don't mind being called a rotter at all. I've been called worse, that's for sure.
And you've been a rotter for a while, Pauline?
Yeah, I was one of the original rotters from 2006 when the pilot scheme was set up.
Right.
And there was just a small band of us then, and it's now extended from just sort of the Hambleton round, Northallerton area, and it's now going right across the North Yorkshire County Council area.
So what made you become a rotter?
My parents were sort of quite hippie-ish in the 70s and very into reusing and recycling and not wasting things, and that sort of, I grew up with that philosophy.
Right.
So we always had a compost heap, and it's a shame my dad died 20 odd years ago, because I could have told him now what he'd been doing wrong with his compost heap, but I didn't know then.
Oh, don't tell me, it was a bit of a sludgy mess,
was it? It was a slimy, sludgy mess, yes.
Well, I guess that's the thing that puts a lot of people off, isn't it? You know, that they think, I'd rather stick it in the bin and get rid of it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's going to make a big mess and I'm going to get lots of flies. And I guess you have answers to all those kind of things.
We do, yes, and it's so easy to put a slimy, sludgy mess right. All you need to do is put lots of drier stuff in. The reason it's a slimy, sludgy wet is it's just too wet. So put drier stuff in, like shredded paper or crushed up cardboard, torn up newspaper. Give it a good old mix round, and amazingly it'll all come back to normal and be lovely compost in very short time.
What short time? What time are you
About 6 to 9 months, something like that.
Right.
Needs to be the bin needs to be in a really sunny place. It needs the heat, it needs moisture, it needs air. For all the bacteria and fungi and all the worms to do the job. So it's just a matter of putting the bin in the right place, putting everything in, giving it a good stir, maybe every month or so. And in about 6 to 9 months you should have a lovely compost.
Right, well you've got people in all sorts of different circumstances. You've got people with tiny gardens, or they might just have a yard. You've got people who've got big gardens and stuff. So there has to be different solutions for different circumstances. Can you talk us through some of those?
Yeah, you can have some of the big New Zealand bins, which are absolutely massive. If you've got a garden sort of on the scale of this, you can have the great big massive bins where you literally can move compost from one bin to another. Because there's so much of it there, you get a much hotter temperature, and so it breaks down much more quickly. If you go to the other extreme, where all you've got is maybe a little backyard, or you've just got a small kitchen area or utility room, you can still have things like bokashi bins.
Now I've heard of this, but actually it sounds very exotic, sort
Yeah.
of Japanesey.
It is very Japanesey, and basically what it is you can put cooked food in there, you can put meat,
right.
bones, and it works by an anaerobic process. So what you're actually doing is you put in your food in there, squashing it down, getting rid of all the air, and then you sprinkle it with a bran that's impregnated with the actual bacteria that breaks all the food down. And you just keep doing that and layering it, squashing it and layering it, and you actually get 2 bins. So you keep doing that with one. You put that one to one side when it's finished, and after about 6 weeks, something like that, that one will have turned into a really, really concentrated.
6 weeks?
Yes, as little as that.
Wow.
And it is quite concentrated. So what I would tend to do is, if you've got a couple of compost bins, put it in your compost bins, because it acts as a really good compost activator.
Right.
So it'll really speed the process up. If you do put it in the ground, put it in sort of small bits and just dig a hole and put it in, so you spread it around the garden instead of one great big lump. And there's other ways though, apart from the cashew bins. There's a wormery, which we have a wormery over there. And the wormeries, as my colleague is going to do in a moment, she's going to show you how to make a mini wormery.
Great, great.
And a wormery basically is just putting exactly the same things as you'd put in your normal compost bin, but you have them in a much more self-contained area, so obviously you don't want the worms to escape. And they gradually break the food that you put in there down.
Right.
And again, you end up with some liquid, and the liquid is a really concentrated plant food, so you dilute that about 10 to 1, depending on the strength of it, and you've got a free plant food at the end of it, as well as your compost as well at the end.
Brilliant. Okay, I'm interested in the worms. Let's go.
Right.
Let's go and have. So Judy, hello Judy.
Hello.
Another rotter.
Yes, I am a rotter, and I'm going to describe and show how to start a mini wormery.
Brilliant. Okay.
Basically, you want a small plastic container like this.
Yeah.
Put a handful of soil or dry compost in, and then also put in a bit of food for the worms, which can be dried, shredded compost, cabbage leaves,
Yeah.
and dried paper, very finely shredded paper, banana skins. You put it all in there,
Okay.
mix it up like that, add a bit of water in
Right.
to make it damp, and then we put worms in.
Just your normal garden worms?
No, there are special ones. They're called brandling worms.
Oh, okay.
And they're stripy worms, and you can get them from fishing shops because they're often used as bait for fishing.
Oh, so you're not only making compost, you're saving worms' lives, which is great.
Of course, of course. You
Right. Oh gosh, yes,
you
they
can
have
have them
got a
as
stripe, haven't they?
children
Oh, they're
often
very
like to have
lively.
them as pets. You can give names to them. Really.
Oh.
So this is a mini one, and then you top it up with a bit, as I was saying before, a bit of paper and a bit of greenery for them, which they will eat and digest.
People would be amazed, Judy, that you can give them
Now-
paper.
On a larger scale, you keep it like that. The lid goes on with a few aeration holes.
Right.
in
Really
it.
important.
And what you can do is move that then to a larger container. Now we have a very large one over here, if you'd like to
Yeah.
come and see. But you can get smaller ones than this. Now,
Ooh.
if you look in here, this is where a lot of the this is
Oh,
where
wow,
you
look at
get
them
the
all.
worms from.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yep.
And then you keep it damp.
And can I
and
just
keep
say,
the food.
Judy, it doesn't smell at all, does it?
It doesn't smell. No, it isn't. It's nice and fresh.
Yeah.
And then after a while, you want to be draining off the liquid at the bottom.
Okay.
Yes. Now the liquid comes out of there, and you dilute it 1 part of liquid to 10 of water, and it's a beautiful liquid fertilizer for plants in your garden.
Yeah.
So it's also a nice thing for children to.
Yeah, I mean,
do.
I can imagine children getting very excited about having their pet
Well,
worms.
actually they are.
And I guess they reproduce like mad as well, don't they?
Yes,
the
they
worms.
do.
So that,
Yes, they do.
Right.
And also, if you do fish, you've got a supply of worms as bait for fishing.
Excellent.
Yes.
Okay, well
Okay,
that's
right. Over to
brilliant.
my colleague now, Ian.
Hello, Ian.
Hello there.
What are you going to tell us about?
Well, I finished work 2 years ago, moved house a year ago, and then decided, well, what am I going to do next? and I was looking at the voluntary sector to find something interesting to do. There's lots of opportunities in the voluntary sector. Had a good look around, and I'd always been part of a gardening family, and I'd had experience making compost before, so that caught my eye. Followed up various other opportunities, but I found that what the rotters offer is hands-on experience. Your voluntary work, you can see the results of it immediately, rather than working for a remote volunteer service where you don't know what's happening with the work you're doing. So that's what really attracted me to this. So earlier this year I went on the rotters course to become a fully qualified rotter, although my wife would say I was already a qualified rotter. But anyhow, since then I've never looked back. I've helped the team with events like this at the promoting composting. I've carried out work helping to sell compost bins across the county, and I've also given talks to gardening clubs on the benefits of composting. And I find wherever you go there's always a sizable minority of people who are already composting, but you can always find something that they didn't know about it.
Right.
For example, I was at the Rydale show at Kirby Moorside talking to somebody who'd farmed all his life, and he was telling me the best way of keeping rabbits away from your gardening patch by laying a trail of human hair around it so the rabbits wouldn't cross that.
Oh, is that right?
And I said, well, do you realise that if you put human hair in your compost, it's got more nitrogen than manure, 15 times more nitrogen, and it'll help your compost. You no need to buy additives or breakdowns. So wherever you go, you exchange information.
Yeah.
And as I'm going along, I'm finding new things all the time. So
get down to your local hairdressers and get it in your compost.
Well, that's what he did. He arranged a weekly delivery of hair.
Yeah, fantastic. So you obviously find it incredibly rewarding. What kind of time commitment are you giving to it as a volunteer?
I try to do about 2 or 3, 4 events a month, and they vary from helping with the sales, giving talks, and events such as this where you're talking to, especially in some of the big shows, the agricultural shows, you meet all sorts of different people, and you can have a really good chat, and it's really enjoyable.
So do you feel that the whole composting movement is really getting going, that people are really understanding
there's more and more
issues?
younger people getting involved and really keen to get involved, and I think the whole thing about recycling is coming alive.
Sure.
We do get involved with trying to reduce food waste and recycle things rather than throw them in the scrap heap. So these are the other two aspects of the North Yorkshire otters.
Yeah, that's brilliant, Ian. Thank you very much.
Okay.
And so finally, how do people get involved if they want to become... Well, 2 things really. Find out more about composting. You must have a website with loads of information on, so tell us about that. But also, following up what the volunteers have been saying, how do they get involved?
Yeah, so if you are interested in composting, you can search the internet for just the composting and you'll get all sorts of tips. But if you live in North Yorkshire, you might be interested in our website, which is letstalklessrubbish.com. And that's got tips, fact sheets, frequently asked questions to do with everything that Pauline mentioned, from the bokashis and wormeries all the way just to traditional composting. That website also has information on how to volunteer as well. We have a whole volunteering section there. But we're also putting things in local papers and posters, and in the volunteering centres across North Yorkshire have our information. But you can also email us on nyrotters@northyorks.gov.uk, or you can phone me up if you're interested on 01609 797 212. And we're having several training days in autumn, and we will have having more in January as well if you are interested in becoming a rotter.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Rebecca.
Thank you.